With the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course, the discussion is back on the table as far as what other remakes that everyone want to see from Square Enix, since Square Enix do have so many games. I know a lot of people want, we all know about the rumors that have been floating around forever about Final Fantasy IX. We have seen the original director, and I think Cradle as well, a Vagrant Story, talking about wanting to make a Vagrant Story remake, and now we have ourselves another game to add to the list of games that people within Square Enix see me very much want to remake for current gen systems. And of course, today we are talking about Chrono Trigger. Since Yoshinori popped up on my Perfect Console podcast, hosted by Simon Maconn, and in the discussion that was had with him, and of course, for anyone who don't know who this is, he is of course a director and a producer of a whole bunch of Final Fantasy games, and still work at Square Enix, so that does have a little bit of weight to it. Is during the podcast, he ends up asking Sam if they were to do a remake of Chrono Trigger, how would he would like to see it, to get some feedback here. And of course, ended up discussing all this, and ended up, of course, the discussion ended up going from, would you like to see a full-on Final Fantasy VII style remake, or would you want something that is more in line with like Octopath and Live Alive, as well as the Star Ocean remake of being the 2.5D version. And of course, in the podcast itself, it was pretty much brought up that ended up liking the style of the Link to the Past remake that Nintendo done. A lot of interesting stuff here. I will have a link to that podcast down in the description if you want to check this out for yourself to hear the full discussion in context. But nonetheless, with it being brought up, the thing that I find interesting about all this is, of course, it was brought up by Yoshinori, and wasn't a question or anything like that. So obviously, Chrono Trigger is on his mind of wanting to be remade, as well as a lot of the people who worked on it, either growing it or at least working in tandem with them on different projects, such as Toriyama, when it comes to like Dragon Quest, and with Toriyama doing original design. That also bring up the question now of if Toriyama would be involved in this or not. Obviously, they dump it up in the air. Who knows? Because at that point, it could be nothing more than a list on a page of games that want to be remade here. But it does feel a little odd with it just coming out of the blue like this. Maybe this is like a ploy to drum up interest, or just see how people react to Chrono Trigger. And then, of course, there's a few other things we need to keep in mind here as well, which is, of course, Chrono Trigger is still available to get your hands on pretty easily, and available on Steam as of right now for $14.99. They have also popped up on mobile devices, as well as consoles over the year. We've seen a DS port, PS1 port. Chrono Trigger have always been around, and always been semi on the forefront of course, Square Enix making sure the games are available, which is fantastic. And of course, this here maybe also lean into, especially with like the theme and mobile release here, maybe this episode enough copy to get Square Enix also interested into looking into the remake. I honestly wouldn't doubt it. And then any more so with the game coming up on 3 decades, who knows, maybe some type of a celebration now in one way or another. And then, of course, don't forget, we also had the remake to Chrono Cross and the Radical Dreamer that came out a few years ago. So that also something else to keep in mind here. Obviously, Chrono Trigger and, of course, in that case, Chrono Cross is on the mind of Square Enix. And honestly, this would be something that I would not be that surprised if this actually did end up happening. And of course, when it comes to the fan base itself, obviously the fan base is 100% in on this. As well as there was a poll put out pretty much asking the same question of what type of art style people would like to see. and ended up getting a little over 2,000 vote here. I know that don't mean a lot, but this is still fun to point out nonetheless. And of course, the one that ended up getting the most here is a graphical remake, and I believe that probably like leaning more so into the style of Octopath, which I am personally all for if they do decide that art style, because I am someone personally who think that like if you're gonna remake any pixel art game, because let's be honest, like 2D pixel art game, a lot of them still holds up dramatically well to this day, just because of the art style that came from the Super Nintendo era especially. So like from that point of view, is by doing like a full-on Final Fantasy VII style remake, as what we'll also discuss in this podcast, would mean the game going more real-time and in return, because without some heavy design work to make the combat system translate into real-time, honestly, I personally agree with the people that voted in the poll to pretty much stick to being more of a graphical remake. They could, you know, either boil down to something like the Pixel Remaster, or, like I said, something leaning more into, of course, the Octopath and Live Alive style. And I'm personally in the camp of just like, if you're going to remake any pixel art game from that era, is of course, do it in the Octopath 2.5D style. Because let's be honest, like, that graphical style, when done right, is extremely gorgeous, as well as still keeping the vibe of what the 2D games was. So I would love to see Chrono Trigger done in that way, as well as Final Fantasy VI for that matter. But maybe one day we will get onto that whole bandwagon of getting a remake to 6. But for the time being, for talking about Chrono Trigger here, this is obviously something that if it is in production, it's probably super early on. But it's still good to know any of this is something that's still being floated around. It's good to know that it's being floated around, which I highly approve of. And hopefully something will come of this over the next few years. And of course, I will keep you guys up to date if something pops up between now and then. So with that, I guess let me know in the comment below, is this interview something to be excited about? Are you excited for a Chrono Trigger possibility of a remake, or elite people inside going it trying to kick it up the ladder to hopefully get it done? Let me know below. Once again, if you want to check out the podcast itself, I will have a link in the description below as well. So be sure to check that out and give the podcast some love while you are at it. But for now, that's gonna go ahead and do it for me for this video. Of course, I do want to give a giant thank you to everybody that's subscribing here on YouTube by hitting that wonderful join button to become a member, as well as anyone subscribing over on twitch.tv/TroyMaconn, where we stream every single day, roughly starting around 7 to 8 p.m. Central, depending on how bad my insomnia is at any given point, because that's a whole thing. And of course, everyone that is subscribing over on patreon.com/Maconn. Thank you, my dudes. And with that, that's gonna do it for me, and I will see you in the comments.